I need to tell someone about this, even though I know how it sounds. I've replayed that morning in my head maybe 1,000 times now, and I still can't make sense of what I recorded. But the audio doesn't lie. I'm 32, work in IT support, and I hadn't taken a real vacation in almost 3 years. My girlfriend convinced me we needed to get out of the city for a week, so we drove up to southern Utah in late September. Found a dispersed camping spot off a Forest Service road, maybe 40 minutes from the nearest town. The first 2 days were perfect. Quiet, just us and the junipers and that massive sky. The dog showed up on the third morning. I heard it before I saw it, this low, repetitive whining coming from the edge of our camp. When I unzipped the tent, there was a shepherd mix, maybe 50 pounds, standing about 20 feet away. Matted fur, ribs showing. It was pacing back and forth in this tight little pattern, like it was stuck on a loop. My girlfriend woke up and we both watched it for a while. She wanted to give it water. I said we should wait, see if it had an owner nearby. But it just kept pacing, kept whining. That's when I noticed the sound. It wasn't normal dog whining. It had this cadence, almost like speech, but not quite. My girlfriend heard it too. She laughed it off, said sometimes dogs sound weird when they're stressed, but I kept listening, and I swear there were fragments in there, shapes of words I couldn't quite make out. I pulled out my phone and started recording. The dog didn't acknowledge us at all, just paced and whined in that same rhythm over and over. After about 10 minutes, it wandered off into the trees. We didn't see it again. That night, we drove into town for supplies. There were missing person flyers stapled to a bulletin board outside the grocery store. A woman named Andrea Marsh, 38, last seen hiking alone near the area where we were camped. The photo showed someone smiling, sunburned, holding a water bottle. I didn't think much of it at the time. When we got back to camp, I played the dog video for my girlfriend while we ate dinner. She said it creeped her out and asked me to delete it. I didn't. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I kept hearing those fragments and I wanted to be sure I wasn't imagining them. Later that week, after we got home, I couldn't stop thinking about the recording. I ran it through some basic audio software I use for work, nothing fancy, just isolation and noise reduction. I was mostly curious. When I filtered out the lower frequencies and isolated the higher tones, I could hear it clearly. It wasn't whining. It was a woman's voice, repeating the same short phrases, barely audible under the animal sounds. Help me. Please. Can't move. Over and over, buried in the track. I checked the news. They found Andrea Marsh 4 days after we left. She'd fallen into a narrow ravine about 2 miles from where we camped. Fractured leg, severe dehydration. She said she'd been calling out for days, but no one came. She survived, barely. I never told anyone about the recording. What would I even say? But here's the thing I can't stop thinking about. The dog showed up on a Thursday morning. They found Andrea on Sunday afternoon, which means when I recorded that sound, she was still out there, still alive, still calling for help, and I just let the dog walk away.
The psychologist asked if I felt safe at work. I lied. She asked if I'd experienced intrusive thoughts since the incident. I told her about the seeds, the counting, the deadbolts. She wrote something down. She didn't ask about the footage I deleted, the 11 minutes on camera 19 that no one else will ever see. I'm 27. I monitor surveillance footage for Border Patrol out of a prefab trailer in Yuma County. Night shift. The air conditioning hums like a dying refrigerator, and the room smells like burnt coffee and the previous operator's cigarettes, even though no one smoked in here for months. 6 screens. Thermal cameras scattered across 40 miles of creosote flats. Most nights, it's just jackrabbits triggering motion alerts. I keep a bag of sunflower seeds on the desk. The shells pile up in a styrofoam cup. It's something to do with my hands. Tonight, camera 19 flags movement at 2:47 a.m. I rewind. A shape crosses the frame, low to the ground, too big for a coyote. I zoom in. The gait is wrong. 4 limbs, but the proportions are off. The joints bend at human angles. I watch it move across the dirt for 30 seconds before it disappears into the dark. I tag it for the morning supervisor and crack another seed between my teeth. At 3:15, camera 22 pings. Same figure, same crawling motion. It's covering ground faster than it should. I measure the distance between cameras, nearly a mile. 15 minutes. My jaw tightens. I call it in. Dispatch says they'll send someone at sunrise. I don't look away from the screens. At 4:02, camera 11 triggers. Closer to the access road now. The thermal bloom is distinctly human. Head, torso, limbs, but it's still on all fours, moving with purpose. Not exhausted, not injured, methodical. I feel my pulse in my throat. The motion detector for the trailer's perimeter beeps, just once. I freeze. The sound is inside the building. I stare at the door. It's closed. The bolt is thrown. I don't move. The air tastes metallic. I pull up the exterior camera feed. Nothing. Just my truck and the gravel lot. I stand slowly, legs shaking, and check the back window. The desert is black under a thin moon. I return to the desk. The sunflower seed shells are scattered. I don't remember knocking them over. At 5:30, an agent arrives. He checks the perimeter, finds tracks, human hands and feet, barefoot. He photographs them, radios for a search team, then leaves. He tells me to lock up tight. I do. The sun rises. I'm supposed to leave at 6, but I stay until my replacement shows. I don't tell her about the seeds. That night, I'm back. New protocol. I check every lock twice before sitting down. I keep my phone in my hand. The bag of sunflower seeds stays in my truck. At 1:33 a.m., camera 19 triggers again. Same figure, same crawl. It stops, turns toward the camera. The thermal signature blooms white where the face should be. It stays there, watching, for 11 minutes. Then it moves on. I don't call it in. Now I work with the lights on. I installed a deadbolt on the bathroom door. I count the seeds before I eat them and count the shells after. Last week, I found a handprint on the outside of the back window. Small, precise. The fingers were spread wide, like someone testing the glass. I don't work alone anymore, but sometimes, on the drive home, I check the rearview mirror and see dust rising from the road behind me, even though no one's there.
I've pulled 17 bodies out of Farmington Canyon. Hikers mostly, a few jumpers, one drowning in the spring runoff. I know what death smells like in every season, but I'd never seen boot prints turn into something else mid-stride, not until that February morning. I'm a search and rescue coordinator, 42, divorced. The call came in at 6 a.m. Domestic shooting, 1 deceased. Suspect fled on foot into Farmington Canyon. I'd done this work for 16 years. The protocol was muscle memory. The staging area smelled like diesel and cold mud. Sheriff's deputies had cordoned off the trailhead. I checked my GPS unit twice, tested the radio. My hands moved through the motions while my mind cataloged terrain. Pinyon juniper, loose shale, deer trails that braided through the canyon like veins. The lead deputy briefed us. Male suspect, armed, considered dangerous. Blood trail led northeast. I nodded. We moved out in a line formation, 4 of us, spacing ourselves 20 feet apart. The blood was easy to follow at first, dark droplets on pale rock, then boot prints in the softer soil, size 11, deep heel strikes, someone running hard. A quarter-mile in, I noticed the prints changing. The stride lengthened, the heel strikes shallowed.
I knelt beside one. The toe box had dug in deeper than before, like he'd been pushing off differently. I radioed it in. We kept moving. The prints stopped being prints half a mile later. I stared at the transition point. The last boot impression was clear. Then nothing. Just scrape marks. 4 parallel gouges in the dirt. I crouched, touched the disturbed soil. It was still damp. My stomach tightened in a way I couldn't name. The other searchers gathered around me. Nobody spoke. We followed the gouges. They led upslope toward a rock formation honeycombed with shallow caves. The marks were continuous now. 4 points of contact, knuckle dragging wide. Too wide. My breathing had gone shallow. I realized I was counting my inhales. The den was small, maybe 6 feet deep. We smelled it before we saw it. Copper and ammonia and something else, something sour. I clicked on my headlamp. The beam caught fabric first. A flannel shirt, torn open down the back seam, jeans in a heap, both soaked black-red. No body, just the clothes, arranged almost carefully, sleeves folded inward. I backed out, radioed dispatch. My hands were steady, but my voice wasn't. The helicopter came an hour later. Thermal imaging found nothing. The canine units lost the scent at the den entrance. We expanded the perimeter. I kept thinking about those gouges in the dirt, the way they'd been so deliberate. We pulled out at dusk. I drove home, showered, ate nothing, sat in my kitchen with all the lights on. 2 weeks later, a hiker reported boot prints near the same canyon, barefoot impressions alongside them, both sets heading back toward town. I installed a deadbolt on my bedroom door. I sleep with my boots on now, laced tight. I check the crawl space under my house every morning before work. Last week, I found scratches on the foundation vent, 4 parallel marks, exactly the width of a man's hand if he spread his fingers as wide as they could go.
I haven't slept in a bed for 18 days. The chair keeps me upright, keeps my hands on the rifle, keeps me from forgetting that the motion sensors went dark for exactly 4 seconds. Long enough. I'm 37. I run cattle on land that's been in our family since the 50s. The house sits a quarter-mile from the road, surrounded by creosote and dried grass that crunches under your boots, even in winter. Evenings, I make coffee in the percolator my father used, and the smell fills the kitchen while I do paperwork at the table. The routine keeps me steady. Work until dark, check the perimeter lights, lock the doors. The window above the sink faces east toward the pasture. I wash my plate there every night, looking out at nothing. 3 weeks ago, I noticed the coyote. It stood at the tree line, maybe 60 yards out, favoring its left front leg. Coyotes don't usually linger like that. They move through. This one stayed until I turned off the kitchen light, then vanished. The next night, same thing, same position. I could see its eyes catching the porch light, unblinking. On the 4th night, I realized it was closer, 40 yards, maybe less, still watching. I mentioned it to Sarah Vickers when she dropped off feed. She squinted at the tree line, then back at me, asked if I'd heard about my brother. I told her we hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since the argument over the property lines. She said he'd been reported missing 6 days ago, last seen leaving a bar in Wilcox. His truck was found near the highway, driver's door open, keys in the ignition. She didn't say anything else, but her eyes moved to the tree line again before she left. That night, I stayed at the window after the lights went out. The coyote came at 9:15. It moved differently now, dragging the front leg, head low, but deliberate. 30 yards out, I could see the gate clearly under the moon, the way it swung its shoulder to compensate.
My brother broke his collarbone when he was 19, never set right. He walked with that same hitch when he was tired. My hands were shaking when I turned on every light in the house. The coyote didn't move. I called the sheriff. Dispatch said someone would come by in the morning. I sat in the kitchen with my rifle across my lap until dawn. The coffee went cold. My neck ached from holding still, listening for footsteps on the gravel, for scratching at the door. The deputy found tracks, coyote prints in a slow circle around the house, stopping at each window. He said it was unusual, but not impossible. Probably sick. Rabies makes them fearless. He'd send animal control. I didn't tell him about my brother's collarbone. It would sound insane. Animal control came that afternoon. They didn't find anything. Said the tracks were at least 12 hours old. They left traps baited with chicken. That night, the traps were untouched. The coyote stood at the kitchen window, 20 yards, close enough to see its breath fog the air, close enough to see it wasn't just watching, it was waiting. I don't use the percolator anymore. The smell made me careless. I keep the lights on all night now. I installed motion sensors on every side of the house, deadbolts on the interior doors. I sleep in the chair with the rifle. Last night, the sensors went dark for 4 seconds, just long enough for something to cross the yard without triggering them. When they came back on, there were wet prints on the porch, not paws, boot treads, the same brand my brother wore.
My hands started shaking on the 5th night. Not fear. I'd been charged by elk, treed by a mother bear. This was different. Muscle memory, recognizing a threat my conscious mind hadn't named yet. I'd been tracking the Kaibab pack for 6 months now, sleeping in my truck most nights, logging coordinates and scat samples. I'm 29. The Forest Service pays me to understand patterns. After the hit and run on Route 180, I was asked to monitor the site. Drivers kept reporting a wolf near the shoulder, always at dusk. The victim's name was never released, just pedestrian, male, no ID. The asphalt still held a dark stain shaped like a comma. I set up cameras in a half circle, 50 yards out. The wolf appeared on thermal twice, but never triggered the motion sensors. Wrong gait, I thought. Too slow. Wolves don't pace. When I checked the cameras, the lenses were smudged, not with mud, but something oily, deliberate. On the 4th night, I walked the shoulder with my flashlight. Tire marks, footprints in the dirt median, deep-treaded boots heading toward the road, not away. They overlapped with tracks I knew. 4 toes, claw marks, but the sequence was wrong. Boot, paw, boot, paw, same stride length. I knelt, pressed my palm into the soil. The footprint was warm. My chest tightened. I stood too fast and the forest tilted. I turned off my flashlight, listened. Nothing. Then, from the tree line, a sound like fabric tearing, rhythmic. Breathing, but through something obstructed, a wet snort, not canine, human sinuses. I backed toward my truck, 40 feet, 30. The sound followed, just inside the shadow of the ponderosas. I saw the outline then, shoulders too broad. It dropped to all fours, and I heard knees crack. The gait smoothed out, perfect. I drove to the ranger station, gave them everything. They sent a deputy at dawn. He found nothing. Probably a transient, he said. They use animal pelts sometimes, keeps them warm. He handed me a card. Call if it comes back. It didn't come back. I did. I couldn't stop. Every night, I parked a quarter-mile away and watched through binoculars. The wolf appeared. It would sit on the stain, motionless, for hours.
On the 6th night, it turned its head, looked directly at my truck, stood, walked on 2 legs to the shoulder, waited. I started sleeping at a motel. I bought a deadbolt for my truck's camper shell. I check my rear view every 11 seconds. I've counted. Last week, I found a boot print in the dirt outside my motel door. Beside it, a paw print. This morning, I opened my field journal. On the page dated the night of the hit and run, someone had written in pencil, "You saw me first." I don't remember writing that. The handwriting matches mine.